Collection properties and operations on collections can be defined independently of the choice of technology. A research collaboration requires information about three main components: the researchers, their names, organization and groups, and permitted operations; a research collection containing both files and workflows; and the hardware and software infrastructure that supports the research. Traditional digital libraries focus on the management of files, their naming, organization, and description. The management of the researcher information and the infrastructure is equally important and is provided by data grids. An example is the Open Archival Information Standard. This describes the representation information that should be associated with a record, but does not describe the properties that should be managed about the preservation environment. We will first look at virtualization of collections and the collection properties that should be described and managed. Collection properties were listed in Module 7. For each property, a set of persistent state information variables is needed. Examples include naming. Multiple persistent state attributes are used to provide names for collections, files, resources, and users. For files, there is a logical file name that is human readable and an object identifier that is used to specify access controls. A file can also have a globally unique identifier such as a handle. For arrangement, a file is a member of a collection which has a collection path. The combination of the collection path and the file logical name is a unique identifier for a file. For identity, each user has a unique account name. The combination of the data grid zone name and the account name is a unique identifier for a user. For authorization, the data grid manages access controls, which require identifiers for the type of access, the user, and the file. For context, metadata attributes for provenance and description are managed with schema indirection, which stores the metadata name along with the metadata value. All of the persistent state information attributes are stored in tables in a metadata catalog. The attributes can be queried, retrieved, and manipulated. In addition to persistent state information, collection virtualization also requires the virtualization of the supporting infrastructure. Instead of listing the infrastructure hardware and software components, we characterize the infrastructure by the policies and procedures that are used to manage the data. The challenge is that we also think of the policies and procedures as characterizing the management of the collection. Is a collection managing the member of files or managing interactions with technology? Each data management application has a different set of policies and procedures, but there is a generic set of policies and procedures that are used by every data management application. To produce a generic set, the requirements for data sharing, digital libraries, data centers, archives, protected data management, and data management plans were examined. The requirements were turned into tasks, and rules were generated that automated the execution of each task. The persistent state information required to execute the tasks was summarized, along with the microservices needed to apply the required operations. A total of 175 rules was created. The rules used 123 microservices and accessed 50 persistent state variables. The rules and persistent state information are summarized in Chapter 1 of the Policy Templates Workbook. The persistent state information attributes used by the rules are shown here. The attributes can be organized into information about collections, data objects, metadata, quotas, resources, tickets, system tokens, users, and data grid zones. We will generate rules that automate task execution by using the persistent state variables. The meaning of each attribute is defined in Appendix B of the Integrated Rule-Oriented Data System Microservice Workbook. For example, the file name is stored in the data name attribute, the data size is stored in the data size attribute, and the username is stored in the username attribute. The operations that were performed are listed here. The operations include workflow functions such as loops and conditional tests, list manipulation functions, structure manipulation, and file manipulation. The workflow operations have names similar to those used in programming languages, such as for a for loop, and select to create a query. The microservice names start with MSI. Each microservice implements a specific operation, such as copy a file, MSI data obj copy, or read a file, MSI data obj read, or get the system time, MSI get system time. Take 7 minutes to complete exercise 9. Write a paragraph on the collection properties you believe will be most important for your collaboration. Consider persistent state information attributes, operations you will need to perform, how to map the attributes and operations to the entities being managed, such as users, files, collections, and resources. Please load your paragraph into the Lifetime Library in the subcollection class INLS 624 by the end of today's class. The homework assignment for this week will be due at noon on next Monday. Identify 10 requirements for a digital library that should be automated. How do these requirements correspond to the properties identified last week? A resource is Chapter 7 of the Policy Templates Workbook on NSF Data Management Plans.